Okay, we're live. I just got notification.
Wow, that's fast.
Mhm.
It's too fast. It's just too fast. And let's see here. Just want to see if I can bring up there it is, live now. Good, and I muted that, so I've now got the chat available. Yay, happy, happy, joy, joy. Okay, gonna play the little startup song so everybody can sing along. Sing along with with AWT. Here we go. And hello, everybody. It's June 5th, 2018, the day after WWDC 2018's keynote address. I'm Steve Sande. This is Marty Edwards to the other side of me over here. And this is AWT TV, Apple World Today TV. And I think we've actually got the chat up. So if anybody is out there, like Paul Gans. Yeah, Paul is asking if there are words to the theme song. I don't think so, but if you want to come up with some, we'll sing along in the future. Hi, Paul. Glad to see you out there. Well, Marty, I was going to ask you a question, and actually something that Paul brought up yesterday. He said, seemed like kind of a nothing burger. Well, he didn't exactly use those words, but didn't think too much about the keynote yesterday. And I'm just wondering, how did you feel about it? Were you depressed by it? Were you happy with it? What were your feelings?
Well, I'll be honest. I felt a little let down. I don't know. It's just sort of like the air is taking out my balloon. It's sort of like Christmas morning, really excited, and you realize you got socks and T-shirts and things you
A
need, but
tie.
yeah, but I wanted something shiny. I wanted a new bike to ride. I admit I felt a little let down, but as time wore on in the day and I got to studying and digging more about some of the features, I'm really excited. So excited as soon as I can, I'm gonna put the beta on.
Yeah, I actually will show that a little bit later here. I've got
How did
the
you
first.
feel?
Well, how did I feel? It's funny because I kept thinking that maybe they'd at least do the iPhone SE 2 or something like that. Just a minor announcement, kind of a toss-off announcement. And by the time they were done, and I realized that they had spent 2 hours pretty much talking about nothing but the operating systems and the in-house apps, I kind of went, oh, okay, I guess they did quite a bit there. And, when you take a look at what their true aim was, I think, we've been bitching and moaning, pardon the expression, for quite a while about, hey, Apple, let's fix things. Let's not, keep adding new features. Let's, slow down a little bit, fix things, optimize things, and then, you can do what you want after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Apple actually listened this year.
Yeah. Now, before I forget, before we get into it, I got two greetings to pass. The lady that I used to refer to as Miss Fiber, they had the fiber, she's regular. She said today to tell you hello. She hasn't been able to view in a while. And someone messaged me that they watched over the weekend. It was my nephew in the Nashville area that he watched it and commented on the show.
Cool.
So I wanted to pass those things along. Yeah, back to what you were asking. I was a little let down. I don't know. I didn't really expect any hardware, but I saw on a site today they made a point that I had never thought about. Everything offered yesterday is free. Nothing
Yeah,
costs. And
that's a
that's pretty
really good
good.
point.
I think I was a little, if the right word is burned out, my eyes were spinning. I can't tell you how much I don't care about Meoji or whatever it is. Maybe I should, I just, it's for kids and teenagers. And I have zero interest in that. But I really feel like they're trying to attract a demographic that's going to be their future. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But there's so much effort and programming into that. And I couldn't think about how much horsepower was required to be able to put a T-Rex on my head while having FaceTime and filters at the same time. I almost want to say use some of that programming power and time to really shore up the system. I'd be tickled with all geeky stuff, but the standard audience is not going to be. And maybe I shouldn't say that, but I don't have any interest in that stuff. And I think guys our age don't.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the number of times that I've actually used an emoji, of course, last year's model, but how many times I've actually used it, and I think I can count them on 3 fingers. Each time I was, somebody was asking about it, and I went ahead and demonstrated it. Paul agrees. He said too much time spent on emojis, and I guess the thing is, if you take a look at our average age between the 3 of us, Paul, you, Marty, and myself, it's probably upwards of, probably somewhere in the mid to high 60s there. So I don't know how old Paul is. I'm not going to embarrass him by asking. But, if you take a look at the average age here, yeah, for us, we kind of look at it and go, hey, if I'm going to talk to somebody, I want to see their real face. I don't want to see a talking dog or, even an anima or a memoji that looks somewhat like me. See, okay, he's 72, 12 years older than me, and almost just 11 years older.
I'll word it this way. I will be 58 before the year's over. So we're probably talking average age of 64, 65 here, something like that.
Yeah, I think we'll make it 63. So yeah, we're an older demographic, and emojis don't really turn us on all that much. He says, yeah, we're twice as handsome too. I think he's yeah.
But I didn't want to sound too harsh, but I think that's one of the reasons I felt a little down. I felt like so much of yesterday was toys that I'll never use. The Lego demonstration, they spent a lot of time on that. And that could be useful in certain situations. But that Animoji stuff and Memoji is just, I just soon. Is there any way you can leave it off my phone, so I can have more power? I shouldn't say that, but I realize they have to do that for the young people and get them, and that may be the future. But I feel like Snapchat, which I've never used, and other things have driven that for Apple to
I think they're trying to slap down Snapchat, and kind of kill it altogether. You kind of get the feeling they're also trying to compete a little bit with Facebook in terms of some of the things that are going on. I did have to, one of the features, and I'm sure we'll kind of just start going through a laundry list here, but one of the features that you and I were talking about before the show started that I really think is going to be a big feature, especially for business, is the group FaceTime. Being able to connect up to 32 people in a meeting. Of course, we'll have to see how performance actually is, but FaceTime has always been pretty rock solid. And if they've been able to expand that to, hey, you can have 32 people on here and it'll automatically show who's speaking and do all the rest of that stuff, that could put a real dent in the use of things like Slack, for instance, to do, because it's an extra on Slack. Maybe they'll make it free now, but being able to have more than 2 people do a phone call on Slack, you pay more. And, I thought it was kind of smart. That's probably one of the smarter product announcements I think they made yesterday. And I look forward to seeing that.
I find that useful. we may even use it on our broadcast and give it a try. And
Yeah.
so I can see using that. 32 is a huge number, and it's not, I don't think it's any accidents of power of two. But, you know, I can see 3 or 4 maybe if I want to show something or share something with my wife, my brother, and a couple of friends. You know, I see something. Say, y'all take a look at this. I can see doing something like that.
Well, I like Paul's comment right now. He said, you know, you could have 32 people on the AWT broadcast. And the good thing about it is we wouldn't have to tell people, hey, you need to go ahead and download the zoom.us software to be able to do that. Instead, we just say, hey, fire up FaceTime. We'll invite, you know, send us your email or whatever. We'll invite you to be on the show. Hopefully they've got mute so we don't have, you know, some people taking over the show. Not you, Paul. You're good. You know, Paul's very polite. He's a good man.
I think he's talking about me because the last 2 weeks or 3 times rather, I haven't even been able to talk or be seen. I'm demoted to an attendee.
So. I feel sad about that. Yeah. And the good thing about it is at least with FaceTime, you can't be demoted.
You know, we are beginning to have a few bugs with Zoom. Like that happens every time now.
Yeah.
And so.
And I see absolutely no reason for it. I actually went to the website and you can kind of denote people who are going to be attendees or panelists, panelists being the people who you actually see on screen. And I mean, I'm sitting there going, this is exactly the way I set it up. So I don't know what's going on. I suppose I could yell at them or something.
Well,
Ooh.
you know, I don't want to seem too down on the animojis. There's an audience for that. I don't think it's men that are retirement age, you know. I can't see using that. I'll be honest, I'd be a little embarrassed too. It's just not my cup of tea, you know. Straightforward, see your face, make a comment. I admit I use some emojis. You know, I sort of like the emoji, say, you know, boy, it's chilly today, and I may put, you know, a face with ice hanging off of it or a cloud blowing. I sort of like those, but
yeah,
a lot of the other stuff seemed really teen and preteen even to me, but I'm sure that's the audience they were going for.
Hey, but there is one thing that I would really, really like to be able to do with that. And, you know, I have to laugh because there were a couple of guys, Ben Rathig and Patrice Brendamore, who used to do a little kind of get together on Google, whatever it was called, Google. What was the Google sharing thing? I can't think of the name of it.
Hangouts?
Google Hangouts, exactly. Yeah, and anyway, we get out there, and of course, you know, one of us would be talking, and then all of a sudden you'd have a crown on the top of your head, or, you know, or you'd be able to, you know, you'd have a clown face on or something like that. And it was a little fun. You know, it was kind of fun if you really wanted to get to somebody else. I could see where during a meeting that would be really annoying. But,
you know, it's sort of odd you couldn't think of Hangouts. Do you know the last time I used Hangouts? It was this morning.
Yeah. Last time I used Hangouts was a long time ago.
My nephew, who's a major Apple person, he's been in it so long he has a .me address, but he always contacts me from while he's working via Hangouts for whatever reason. But don't misunderstand my comments. That emoji is amazing technology, just not something that I want to use. And I've heard other people be extremely brutal. One guy said, "This is 2 hours of my life I can never get back." It's gone.
Well, yeah, and you know, the one thing about it too is if you look at the total audience for both the Animoji and the Memoji now, it's a very small audience. It's only those people who have an iPhone right now, an iPhone 10 that has the you know, the proper whatever the heck they call the camera, but you know, being able to look at your face, you know, identify the face and look at all of the musculature moving. And it's still going to be a very small audience. Now, the thing is, Apple may be looking at this and saying, you know, at that audience that you were talking about, the teenagers and everybody, and saying, this would be cool enough that a bunch of kids are probably going to be able to, are probably going to go out and upgrade to our next generation iPhone coming out this fall that would, have that camera capability. I love Paul made some comments here. He says, I wonder what an argument would look like. He's talking about group FaceTime with many people speaking at once, faces popping up to the top all the time. And he says, I think the little old woman user would like animojis too.
Little old what?
Little old woman user.
Oh, I'm not saying I don't have an iPhone 10. If I get it, I'll probably try it out once, maybe with my wife, just to see. But I don't know. I'm a little embarrassed to even try it. I'm pretty conservative. I've always been pretty extremely conservative and down to earth, and I don't do over the top things. So, but I have such a list that they talked about that I'm really excited about. That yesterday I was a little, but today I'm ready to load the beta. But I don't have a developer's account. So,
well, maybe just to get started, let me, because we could talk about this stuff all night, but let me I've got iOS 12, the first beta, running on a pretty old iPad Mini 2, excuse me. And let me go ahead and share that screen. And I'll just show you, right now, the performance, to be honest with you, isn't that good. And of course, first beta, it's always going to be slow. That just goes with the territory. I've seen it with other betas. First time you think, oh my God, they really goofed up. But, it gets better as time goes on. However, on this device, being probably at the lower end of what, Apple's really looking at for devices that can run iOS, and I'm trying to get this to come up here. Come on. There we go. iOS 12. I think this is, somewhat indicative of how bad it's going to be. But here you see some new things on the screen. I don't know if you can see this up in the upper left-hand corner, but it now shows the time and day and date up there. 7:47, Tuesday, June 5th. Comes up on the top of the screen. And I thought that was pretty darn cool because that's, something I, on occasion, will need to see. They've put all of the other icons, things like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, you can see displays is up there and battery life and all that, up in the upper right corner. So I thought that was kind of a cool start there. Photos, let me go ahead and bring that up. I really didn't see too much new here because I don't know if it's really had time to hit a lot of my files here, but there is this new thing called For You. And what it is showing me today is I've got best of the year 2016, showing some of the memories that are here, also showing some activity and some shared albums. And I think that's about it in there. At one point today, it was coming up and telling me that I had a new memory, but I think that was, I think it was lying. I think it was having issues with that. But really not too much of a physical change there, but you will apparently see quite a bit of a change in terms of how you search for photos. So I thought that was kind of a pretty cool thing there. Let me get out of photos. Camera, I don't think we're going to see much of a change at all, simply because this camera does little or nothing on this device. Hey, let's see, I'll switch it around and it's taking forever doing it. And there I am in front of the green screen. But anyway, nothing super terrific has changed, at least with this version of the camera app. Maybe a little bit later in further betas, we'll see something different. And you can tell this is really, really slow right now. There we go. We're back to square one there. Now, what has changed? Well, the stocks app is definitely different. And I don't know how many of you out there use stocks on the iPhone. I just kind of keep track of Apple and how my wife's stock in Lockheed Martin is doing and all the rest of that. And the one thing that you'll see here, I don't know if you can see the arrow moving around on the screen,
We
but
can.
yeah, right next to, for instance, here, Apple, got the stock ticker, the company name, and then you have this, what they call a spark line. And that's really showing how the trading went in the last 24 hours. That's completely new. And it's really, that's kind of a handy thing. You can, see, for instance, AT&T for some reason just had a nice climb today. But Apple, we're up to 950 billion. They might be able to actually make it over a trillion here soon. And of course, on the right side of the screen now, as you can see, you have news about, finance news, and pretty interesting stuff. Apple, we've got stuff there about this stocks that I follow. This is interesting. Business Insider, and they're showing Craig Federighi, a top Apple executive, unwittingly provided a perfect explanation for why the iPad is a bad computer replacement.
I'm actually curious about that. So
yeah, okay, we're going to have to look at this. Let's look right now. See how slow this is on this little teeny tiny thing here. Let's see, Craig Federighi. We feel that the ergonomics of using a Mac or that your hands are rested on a surface, that lifting your arm up to poke a screen is a pretty fatiguing thing to do. Federighi's statement unwittingly explains why the iPad is not a good replacement for a laptop or desktop computer. And he's wrong, or whoever wrote this is completely wrong, because iPad, for the most part, you're using on a flat surface. So
yeah, I don't see that. I don't. Yeah,
it's typical Business Insider. They say things without thinking. Whoa, and I just made a comment there. Shame on me. Anyway, voice memos is over here, and
that's new on the iPad.
Yeah, and I haven't really even launched it today, so it doesn't look like we've got anything on it. And I know it's not hitting iCloud yet. But anyway, that's pretty much it right now.
It might be a little slow because when you were in photos at the bottom, it said it was uploading a bunch to the cloud.
That could be it. Yeah. Well, anyway, if, for instance, some of the things that they talked about yesterday, like the shortcuts editor, couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't know.
Well, can you open up FaceTime, and is the interface for FaceTime any different?
Oddly enough, I don't even have FaceTime on here. So I think they're making that an extra. The one interesting thing is that if you take a look at this screen, of course, the lock screen or notifications, is showing Siri app suggestions, which is something they talked about yesterday. Apps, will suggest that you can add them to Siri. And I tried this earlier, and it went right out and connected up to the Apple developer site, and I couldn't download anything. So apparently that's not working yet either. But, like I said, early beta, it's been out a day. The fact that it's not crashed while we've done this demonstration here says a lot. So that's my demo of iOS 12 so far.
I'll mention some things that I thought that really stood out. I'll tell you what changed my mind. I was like Paul. I was a little just blasé afterwards. Like, it didn't excite me. And I thought, well, another year, but I really wanted the geeky under the hood. I'd rather have that. I really liked when they showed how that they can now make the CPU basically ramp up to 100% instantly.
Yeah.
One of the differences, you've got the iPhone 10, I've got the 7 here. Of 7 Plus, jet black. But anyway, it's a 4-core, but iOS can only use 2 cores at once. and your iPhone 10 is 6-core, but each one can be going at the same time. So if an app needs that power, all 6 can be operating at once, which is pretty amazing. Or have 2 for heavy duty lifting and 1 each on the 4. And with what they were saying yesterday, that they've got it now where they can ramp them up instantly. So we ought to have a lot more speed. But, I'll mention some of the things that I really like. There were quite a few unannounced features. And then I have a couple of things that I was really hoping they would announce that they did not for the software.
Okay.
Well, we've already talked about multiple user FaceTime. Automatic updates are going to be included.
Yeah.
For iOS. Don't know how that's going to work because you usually have to click on and agree, Maybe they'll have something at the beginning. Do you agree to forever?
Yeah,
our terms.
forever.
Yeah, till the end of
Every
time.
update that ever comes here.
And so I think that's nice for people that aren't geeky, that just want updates. Like I do, my wife's quite technical, but she does want her phone just work. So I have her for all automatic updates. And it's just handy. I check it every once in a while. Sure enough, they stay updated. You didn't show there, but the iPhone gestures are now on the iPad. You swipe and do and all that. You don't have to use the home button anymore. And so any
I'll
iPhone.
Be damned. You're right. So, I just noticed, or I just did that. You said that, and I went, is that true? And sure enough, swiping up from the bottom of the iPad mini screen, and this is an old iPad mini, sure enough, it brought me up to kind of the, I don't know what you call it, the app picker or the list of active apps.
I think what they're doing with that is trying to get everybody used to that, because they're getting away. There won't be any home buttons on anything. They want all gesture based.
Cool.
But what really got me excited and really looking forward to the beta, it's not implemented yet, and we talk a little bit about the possibilities of this, but is the, what do they call it? The Siri, not selections, shortcuts. Siri shortcuts, where they gave the example that you can record a phrase and train it. Just the phrase is, I'm leaving for home. Siri then knows to say, send your wife a text, a message with a variable actually in the message. They showed it on the screen. The variable is time to home. And so it'll calculate and change. And then it will open up, a music app for you or maps and things like that. So you can really stack commands. This is obviously from their acquiring of that workflow app.
Yeah, I honestly thought that was the probably one of the top announcements of yesterday, because I think I kind of made the comment on another site today. It was over at OWC's blog.macsales.com. But I made the comment that, right now, if you take a look at Google Now and Amazon Alexa, they're very broad. There's a lot of different things that you can do with them, but they're not very deep. Apple is kind of looking at making things deep and stackable, and being able to use different apps to bring in different information with just one talk there. So, I think that's, I honestly think that Siri needs some work underneath the hood, but for the time being, this is really going to add a lot of power to Siri.
I agree. And to me, that was probably the top announcement, because it's basically it gives the geeky ones of us that don't care as much about the animojis and that stuff, me emojis. It gives us some really geek stuff to work with, programming and stack commands. I would love to be able, and I hope it'll go deeper. There are places such as church that I always want my phone muted. I would love to be able to say, Siri, I'm going to church, and have it know when I get to this location, mute the phone, and, whatever, turn on Do Not Disturb, and
check in on Swarm, showing that you're at church.
And, things like that. But even go deeper, have variables, because there's times I'm there where I don't want the phone muted during the week. If I can stack things like, when I'm at this location at these hours of the week, Siri mute. And if they can get that, I would really, I know you've probably have never used Android. I have quite a bit, and they have a program called Tasker. If you're Tasker, you can program your phone basically to do anything. You almost need a degree in programming to use the app. It's really complex, but you can do things like when I'm at this location, if it's this day of the week and this time, send this text, but also play this alarm if, whatever you want. It's extremely complex. And I've used that a lot and I like it. And so to me, that's one I'm just curious how deep they're going to let us go with that. Will they let us send automatic text? It seemed to indicate that yesterday, on my way home to text my wife when I arrive so I don't have to do it.
Yeah, and I could just see where, certain things being able, if they could take it one step deeper, where instead of having to tell Siri certain things, if it could sense certain, like you were talking about location, if it could sense certain things are about to happen, or a certain app just opened, or a certain app is doing something, that it could go in and start, shut down other apps, do things like that, be fantastic. What I'm thinking about is, some of the drone stuff that I do, you honestly want most of the wireless off because especially with the higher end drones, you're basically using the phone as just a intelligent screen, as you will, hooked into a remote controller that's controlling your device. And you don't want Bluetooth, you don't want Wi-Fi on, you don't want all the rest of this interfering. To be able to say, hey, when I bring up this particular app, and if you see this thing happening, this particular thing happening, shut off Bluetooth, shut off Wi-Fi, and you've just made my life a lot easier because then I don't have to remember.
Yeah, I agree. I hope they'll allow a lot of if-thens, but they seem to indicate it yesterday of giving that example of like when you leave work, I'm heading for home. You create your own phrase that it will text your wife with a variable. Of course, she'll see the time. You don't even have to worry about the time. It calculates it for you. It'll turn on music and all that. So it seems like it's going to give a lot of internal control. So I'm hoping they'll let us do a lot. That's why I'm excited. That's why I'm going to take a chance and load the beta on my daily driver. But I'm careful. I do a full backup to iTunes first, and then I can do what's that called, DFU restore.
Yeah.
Roll back the firmware, and that's what I'll do. But I want to give it a try. Of course, I'll get the public beta probably when it comes out. So that was my most exciting thing. But I know my number two.
What's your number two? I got to hear this.
All right. It is when you press on Do Not Disturb, you can say for like 1 hour or when I leave this place. I think that's super handy. I love that. Yeah. But I do have a question. I wonder if it works with just pressing, or do you have to have on 3D touch? Because I turn off 3D touch. I've never cared for that feature.
Okay, I'm going to look here and see if we have. Let's see. Where are you? Do not disturb. Wow, this, like I said, this thing is quite slow. Do not disturb. Let's see. Scheduled. Bedtime mode. Well, I don't really see anything new here yet, so
maybe because you don't have a GPS in that.
That's probably, well, I don't know. That's interesting. We'll have to see what's going on there.
Or maybe I don't know if it does have a GPS. Maybe it does.
Well, the one thing I just found that I didn't see before was screen time. That was another announcement.
Yeah.
Which basically says, how long have you used this device and what are the apps that you're using? You want me to bring that up on the screen?
I'd love to see it.
I didn't even think about that. Let me.
We really want you to do a me emoji and make yourself a T-Rex or something.
Or I can be one of my cats, right?
Yeah,
let's see here. I gotta do my share screen thingy again there. Okay, here we go. And there we go. Yeah, let me bring that back up. That was under settings. Here's screen time. and it's a new logo, a little hourglass. And as you can see here, it's showing for this device, which is called Mini. Isn't that cute? Anyway, it shows that screen time. I've been looking at it for 46 minutes today. Stocks was part of it. Oh, it's showing different parts of the day. Stocks, I looked at 3 minutes. Productivity apps for probably about 5 minutes. 13 minutes. Longest session 31. Most used video was photos. How many times have you picked up the device? Once an hour. Very interesting how they're doing this. How many notifications did you get? Where did they come from? So you'll be able to set limits, as you can see here, schedule downtime, app limits. Some apps will be available all the time. And then there are content and privacy restrictions. Great, we can block inappropriate content. I'm kidding here too, but anyway, that's actually pretty good. Cool. I didn't see that earlier. I was going to look at Siri too, see if there were any changes. Here are some shortcuts. See what Siri inserts there, more shortcuts. Doesn't look like there's much there right now, but kind of cool to, at least see the little bit of a shell here for all of this. I'm just going to look at FaceTime. FaceTime, because I don't even see the FaceTime app on this device, which is really funny. But
I think I'd heard that the new FaceTime, group FaceTime, is part of Messages now.
Okay. Let's see here. Messages, iMessage, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think you're right on that, because
so if you start, if you were to start a message, you may have that option to do.
Let's see here. Maybe we can start a message with, let's see.
Yeah, well.
Let's see.
Send.
We're just trying to find a comment from my sister there. I was going to see if there's anything on starting a
if you hit the camera, would that do it?
Let's give it a try. Nothing happening. There we go. No, it doesn't seem to show FaceTime. There. Well, this is one of those, we'll have to determine this later. Let me scroll here and see if there's anything else.
I'm sure in 2 weeks we'll have a lot more to discuss.
Yeah.
I'm hoping within 2 weeks they have the public beta out, but they probably won't quite that quick.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, last year, I think it came out within 2 to 3 weeks. So I wouldn't put it past them there. Anyway, I'm glad I was at least able to see that. Hey, one of the other announcements that, if we really want to look at something that they kind of tossed off, but I think it's really kind of important, was the bit about working with Pixar on that USDZ AR file format. And it's based on that Z on the USDZ there, essentially stands for zip. It's based on the zip file format. It takes a bunch of information, metadata, picture files, everything else, and kind of crams them into a zip file. And the idea is that you can send augmented reality files to anyone. And Adobe, their chief technical officer, got out there and said, hey, basically we're all in on this. Creative Cloud apps are going to be able to save to USDZ format. They're coming out with a new iOS app for designing AR content. And that was pretty cool. Also, I don't know how many of you out there had a chance to try some of the measurement apps that came out last year with iOS 11. Most of them were really bad. Most of them were awful, to be honest with you. And it was interesting to see that Apple we always talk about them going in and killing off really good apps. Well, a lot of bad apps just got killed. They came out with the new Measure app, and you'll be able to point your iOS device at something, and it'll say, I can tell I'm 4 feet away from that. Therefore, this distance is 3 feet, 2.1 inches, or this area is X square feet, whatever. So that was pretty cool. Like you said, I thought the ARKit demo of Lego, being able to take digital and physical assets and kind of bringing them together, it was interesting. But once again, who's the real audience for augmented reality?
I did see another blogger or someone comment, said they actually felt sorry for the Apple employees for having to go through what they did to present that. They were brutal. And so talk about, because there was so much stuff like that. And I don't feel that way. There's stuff, honestly, I didn't care about, but that's okay. I go to a buffet and eat. There's going to be some dishes, probably a lot of people disagree, but if they have liver out there, I will pass that. Y'all can have that.
For me, lima beans.
Yeah, I'll pick the steak, So there's something for everybody. So I don't want to sound harsh, but overall, I absolutely love where they're going. I think they are really shoring it up. One of the other notes I'd written, you can now make certain apps you want to override Do Not Disturb. Like if you have a health app that sends you data, and I had read online, like, if you say, for instance, had a pacemaker and your doctor need to contact you about it, or that app did, you can make it override Do Not Disturb, which is a good thing on some apps,
Yeah, or if you've got an app that works with like an insulin pump or something like that, you probably really want to get notifications if the pump needs refilling or something's going on there. So that's really good to hear.
We're winding down to our last quarter hour here, but I'll tell you some things I think I was looking for, and probably a lot of people were. Obviously, since they did dark mode on macOS, we haven't even touched that. I was really hoping for a dark mode.
Yeah.
Since we have OLED displays now, dark mode isn't just pretty, but it actually saves power because all those black pixels are off.
Yeah, and that kind of makes you wonder if, that dark mode, they were talking about dynamic desktop.
That looked good.
Your desktop changes as the day goes on. So you'd see like a picture of the desert early in the morning, and then, in mid-morning and noon and afternoon and evening, and stuff like that. I love that idea. And then having, it almost looks like you were able to go between light and dark mode, depending on the time of day as well. And it really looked good. The dark mode did.
It did look good. I'm looking forward. We haven't even touched on macOS, but of the things they're having, this is officially, Mojave will be the last macOS to support 32-bit. They're gone. Yeah.
I had to laugh. I was reading something today. There are some developers who are basically people who are supporting really old games, but they're upset that, Apple kind of stopped really paying attention to OpenGL about 2010.
That was the last version they used, 2010.
Yeah. And, of course, there was a major update, last year, 2017?
Yeah, it was 2017.
But they've now said, hey, after Mojave, whatever the next version happens to be, we're no longer going to support OpenGL. And these guys were really screaming about it. And they said, between that and the fact that you're not supporting 32-bit apps anymore, what are we going to do? And I just kind of have to, I don't know, as a gamer, you probably understand a little bit more what they're talking about. For me, I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if they use OpenGL, it works on Windows and Mac. So they only have to write one group of code. If they get rid of OpenGL, they'll have to recode everything to use Metal. And a lot of them said, their Mac user base may be 1%, and they couldn't afford to totally program for that few users, Whereas when they had OpenGL, they could just about 30 minutes to port over a game. to Mac, but they had to basically start from scratch with Metal. So they're going to drop Mac, because it's just not cost effective then. Really the only game I play, and my wife too, is World of Warcraft, and they support Metal. They have for quite a while now. And so it'll be on there a long time.
Yeah, I just kind of, I don't know. I can see their point of view, and in one respect, you go, at least you could have done is given us a, some way of running these apps, in a OpenGL emulator or something like that. But on the other hand, you kind of, I think from Apple's standpoint, they're looking at it and saying, get rid of some of this legacy stuff and let's use the latest technology that we've designed and built into our latest products, because it's going to give you, faster speed, better rendering, shading's going to look better, battery life on mobile devices is going to be much better. And, you can see a little bit of both there.
Yeah, and I do, but I think it is time to move on. I think part of it is the grand plan. They will leave Intel behind. I think there's going to be an ARM-based Mac, and so they don't need the legacy software. They can't have it and do that, So that's not my thought. I read that today. So.
Well, there's also been comments out there about, of course, Apple and Qualcomm have had their fights for the last couple of years here. And one comment that I've been seeing is that, of course, Apple is looking at, kind of pressing Intel right now for some of the wireless or for the modem chips essentially on the devices, which is great, because I think, Apple's kind of throwing a bone at Intel and saying, hey, we'll give you some of this other work. But then again, I noticed Apple's been doing a ton of hiring of people who know how to, build these chips that work with, LTE, 5G, whatever they're calling it, 5G NR, which is the really next generation. It's called New Radio, which I thought was funny. But they're looking at hiring people. You almost wonder if they're going to plan on building their own modem chips as well. So
I think they will. I really think they want to control and have everything in the phone. And I don't blame them, because it can be more sleek. That's why the iPhone runs so well, because they control the hardware and software, the main of the operating system we see. We've mentioned this before, but a lot of people don't realize your iPhone, and Android too, have two operating systems: the front-facing consumer one, and then the one that controls the cellular. And I've read it's only about 100,000 lines long. That sounds like a lot, but in an operating system, that's near nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you think that, you made it to the moon and back on, probably 4K of code operating on a 16K computer. And, here we are now talking about hundreds of thousands of lines of code or millions of lines of code.
And that's
when
small.
You're looking at an operating system. Yeah.
So, but I'm excited, overall, and we're not ready to close, but I'll close it. Even though, if Apple's listening, I apologize for my comments on Memoji, but it's not for me. But I'm really excited where they're going. If Siri shortcuts turn out the way I think they're going to, the way it looked, to me, that will be a major watershed point, because you'll basically be able to program your iPhone to do things for you. And we'll know in a few weeks how that's working out.
Yeah, and up to date, I don't know if you've used Workflow before, but I always found it, it was useful, but lacking that link to Siri. It wasn't as useful as it could be. And now, seeing that you've taken kind of the thought of Workflow, the power of Siri at being able to, respond to verbal commands, that is just going to be neat.
Well, with Apple doing it, they'll let it hook deep into the operating system where they wouldn't before.
Yeah.
So what's your one other?
Oh, one other thing I was going to bring up. I thought it was great. You know, it was like in the last few seconds of the keynote yesterday, they did bring up that APFS will finally support Fusion and hard drives.
So, well, I'll tell you what, one little interesting note, I've got this external SSD, but I can format it as APFS, but when I restore an image onto it, it reverts back because that's the way the image originally was. I can
Hmm.
format and start from scratch, but it's not worth it because as soon as I get the Mac Pro, this is going to just be dedicated to a server on the side.
Hey, I was going to ask you, as an fellow Apple TV 4K owner, how did you like the announcement that tvOS 12 is going to have Dolby Atmos sound?
Well, in reading what you wrote in our chat comments, I don't have anything supported, so it didn't really affect me.
Yeah,
I've
I
got
don't
a
have a sound bar,
yeah.
so you know
Well, I'm
it's
not sure. I've got a pretty good sound bar with a massive subwoofer on the opposite side of the room. It's behind my wife and I. You can't see this side of the room. This is our theater. That's a 55-inch TV, and we've got two recliners there. So this is where we do all of our watching in here. We've got a subwoofer behind us, and I mean, it will vibrate the chairs. It really sounds good. And but one of the things that Apple has done, and this was in 11.4 with AirPlay 2, I can so easily send things over to this sound bar. It seems much
cool.
easier. It really sounds nice. I just had to have it powered on, and
Nice.
it really, just the phone sounds. You talk about gaming immersively. I can game on the phone, send the sound to the sound bar or whatever I want. And it will just rock the room and
Nice.
things like that. Or I can send. That's one of the reasons I like Apple with the Apple TV so much. Is oftentimes I want to show my wife something, and so I'll just AirPlay it right to the TV to show her. And other night she was wanting to show me something on her phone. I have them both set up. She just slid up and hit screen mirroring and appeared on the TV. So it's really nice.
Nice. Hey,
We didn't even
one
talk
one
about 11.4 last week, so it's come out.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was a total uh, change, I think, for us. I don't think my wife is updated yet, so I probably have to go run an update on her machines
That's
there.
why
But
they're going to automatic updates. Is your wife?
good point. Well, I thought it was also interesting when they were talking about Apple Watch and Watch OS 5. I love the walkie-talkie function. I
Oh,
think that's going to be
Nextel.
great. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. You know, it'll act like the Nextel phones. Can you imagine being out, you're walking along, you don't want to stop or, ask Siri to make a phone call. Instead, you just go in and you say, hey, I should be home in about 15 minutes or something like that. And that person hears the
Right.
message. Love that idea.
It
Absolutely
is.
love it.
I assume it'll use cellular or Wi-Fi, either one.
Yeah. Also, I love the fact that they're doing the automatic workout detection, because one thing that I always forget to do is after a walking workout, I always forget to end the workout. So I end up with 45 minutes instead of 30. The last 40 or 15 minutes or so end up looking really slow. So that was a cool suggestion.
Well, you've got on the earbuds, or what do they call them, earpods.
Oh, these guys AirPods? Yeah.
AirPods. They're going to introduce where you can channel your input to your iPhone microphone to those. Like if you're having trouble hearing someone in a noisy restaurant, you can set it and hold your phone up toward them, and it will send the audio to your ears.
Oh,
I saw that
nice.
today.
And me being as deaf as I am, I'm actually going to my hearing was good up until I was about 4 years old, and I literally went almost completely deaf. They took out my tonsils, adenoids. I got my hearing back. Miracle. However, as a older human being now, my hearing has really gone downhill badly, and I'm actually going in on Thursday to talk about getting hearing aids. So one thing that I really, really want is hearing aids that I can link to at least over Bluetooth, and be able to control. Some of them now, they can actually, when you go to an audiologist and get a hearing test, they can actually take the results of that and reprogram the hearing aids remotely. So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking into. So I may stop wearing these. I may actually have them in my ear next time.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that may be months from now.
Yeah. Hope it works out, that it helps your hearing. My hearing's okay. Of course, it gets a little dull as I get older, but I do okay. My problem is, well, I've never had prescription glasses. I need to use reading glasses. And so, but fortunately, I can get $12 I think I got 5 for $12 at Amazon. They work.
Oh, wow.
You know.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Well, I actually went to the optometrist, and he said, "You don't need glasses." He said, "Get reading glasses." And so I did. So
nice.
And they fixed everything. I thought I wouldn't be able to use a computer. I couldn't see it. And I was having a lot of, I could see the computer, but it was such a strain. He said, all you need is, he said, when you're looking at your phone, use 2s. When you're looking at your computer, he said, go a weaker strength, because I was having trouble. I couldn't find a good balance. It fixed everything. It changed. I went back to him later. And when my wife or mother had an appointment, I said, I want you to know you changed my life. I said, I can use the computer. He said, well, that's good to hear. He said, often people don't come back and tell me that I really made a major difference. So,
hey, I was going to bring up another comment about Apple TV. I thought, Apple has always kind of, or at least the Apple TV, they're, kind of slowly but surely building up momentum in that area. And I thought it was very, very cool that they made the announcement that 2 cable companies in Europe, Canal Plus in France and Salt in Switzerland, are going to be using Apple TV as literally as their cable box.
That's interesting.
Everything will be streamed. But the big announcement was that Charter Spectrum in the US is going to be doing this later this year. And the interesting thing is they have about 50 million subscribers.
Wow.
So if Apple can even get 10% of that, that's 5 million more Apple TV users.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Of course, my saga with it. I returned one, and but then I decided I wanted it, and I'm really glad I kept it, because if for no other reason, it is too handy just to stream my phone over. It's just extremely. And games do look good. Some just stream something over. It looks really, really nice. So try and see if there's anything else I had from the announcement, or was there anything? Oh, on Safari tabs in iOS and macOS, you now have what they call favicons, the little icon of the site.
They do? They finally added it?
It will be in iOS 12.
I got to look. I got to see if this is, because we've always had a favicon for the site, and of course you can never really see it. So I'm gonna have to see if it actually shows up for Apple World today. This would be cool.
It may not be implemented yet, but it is coming in iOS 12.
Oh, please, that would be really, really. My sister just sent me a interesting note. She said, "Did you just butt dial me I butt dialed her the other day. I was using a new iPhone case, and it kept dialing people. And so we ended up having a nice conversation, but I didn't mean to call her. Well, she said, I just sent her a comma. So something's going on there.
Yeah, that new case is called iDial. I-D-I-A-L.
iDial, yeah. Let's see here. Come on. It's not showing me anything yet. Come on, baby. Let's see.
It may not be implemented, but it's in the plans. I sort of like the favicons, or whatever they're called.
Me too. I've always liked them because you can kind of tell the difference. Some sites, just seeing that little icon, and especially being able to see it in a tab, you're going to go, oh, I know what that is. Well, I've only got one tab up, so let me open up another site here if I can. Wow, this is the world's slowest iPad here. It is really slow. So I'm going to go, let's see, we'll bring that up. And now we'll see if I get fave icons here. Come on, baby. Anyway, I'll just keep that at the side. Anyway, any other things that you...
Oh, I'm sure I'll think of some, but we will save those for next week. More colors for photo markups. I like this. Whenever you get the two-factor authentication in an SMS message, it will now populate the suggestion field. You don't have to go and copy and paste anymore.
Yeah, thank God.
You can just tap and have it. I really like that because I use that a lot.
Yeah, I love two-factor authentication, and that has always been one of those things, especially if you get a notification that comes up on the screen and you don't see it immediately, and then you look and you go, okay, the number is 4776, and then it slides away.
I know it. But now that will appear for you, ready to tap.
That's cool.
You can now use two faces to unlock your phone. So like husband and wife, if they wanted to share.
Nice.
And yeah.
Maybe I will have to install this on well, maybe not.
So anyway, that's all I had for now. I'm sure by next week, when I can get a hold of it, I'll wear it out. And you know how I like to dig and find all these little things.
Yeah, and I, like I said, unfortunately, really didn't have a tremendous amount of time to play with iOS 12 here today, but I really honestly need to put it on something else. This is so slow.
Put it on your iPad Pro.
That's a possibility.
Well, for anyone listening, if you do want to use the public beta, the way to cover yourself is open up iTunes on your phone and do a full backup. Just look on Apple's site, and you can find all the instructions if you Google Apple for how to restore from a beta, to erase a beta and restore. It'll tell you how to back up first and restore it.
Yeah, and it's
pretty
kind of interesting from the developer end of it. They're really making it easy. You used to have to actually go in and do the installation, the first installation, the initial beta version from iTunes. And now basically all you do is you go in and you download a profile, install the profile, reboot, restart, go in, and it shows, oh, you've got an update available for iOS 12 and, beta version, whatever it happens to be. So it just keeps getting easier and easier. I like it.
Yeah, this beta, everything I'm seeing is really stable from what people are talking about. So I'm hoping that will cause them to release the public beta maybe a little quicker. But I can wait. I'm not going to pay $99 for a developer's account for betas. When I can get them soon, if they didn't have the public beta, it might be a different thing.
Yeah, I love the fact that they created that public beta program, because, we used to see a lot of people that would kind of illegally do the installs. That was back in the days when you could actually download the install files, and you would just kind of send them to a friend and say, oh, by the way, here's what you're going to have to do to load this. And now, it takes all the illegality out of it. It creates a much larger audience for the beta, so they can actually get some real field testing. Smart move, Apple.
Yeah, it is. But if I was going to sum up one thing, I really am excited about iOS 12. I like where it's going. I won't use everything, but that's fine. It's a buffet.
Oh, come on. I can guarantee you that someday in the future, we're going to be on here and we're not going to be using this. We'll be, doing our FaceTime conference, and you're going to have like, cat head talking at me.
I'm just not turned that way. I'm very reserved. Let's say that.
Well, at least, you could make a really, really interesting memoji.
Well, this is all I've got, and it's good enough. So I'll just use this. Use the
Yeah,
real thing while I can.
good point.
Yeah,
Very
so.
good point. Well, we've gone just a tiny bit over. We're like 4 minutes over there. I don't know about you, but I had a heck of a lot of fun time.
Yeah, this was a good show. A lot to talk about. And once I can get a hold of the beta, I mean, I do tend to like to really dig. And I think, I'm looking forward to sharing some things.
Yeah, and then what we'll have to do is actually try FaceTiming and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll do that. I won't do the Mac beta because this is my bread and butter. And but I don't mind doing my phone because it's super easy to restore from an iTunes backup.
Yeah, oddly enough, I'm probably going to wait a little while as well with macOS Mojave, because even though this is not my primary machine, this laptop, I tell you, if that iMac happens to go down, this is my livelihood. So.
Well, I could actually install. No, I don't know. I don't know if it'll install on that MacBook Air that I bought from you or not, because it's 2010. I think 2012 was the cutoff point.
Yeah, I keep thinking and that was the other thing I noticed. A lot of comments, people saying, yeah, they got rid of support for, this era. Once again, everything comes to an end of life eventually. Even machines that can run Windows 95.
Well, they're going back 6 years to put iOS 12 on the iPhone 5S. That's pretty amazing, really.
Well, I'm surprised that it even runs on this old iPad Mini. I was going to look at the year here. I don't think it has a year on it. But, yeah, this is a pretty old device.
What was that? Just the iPad Mini?
The Mini 2.
Let's see what year that did come out. November 12th, 2013.
13. So 5 years old.
Yeah.
I'm going to sneeze here. Maybe we better go to it.
Yeah, we
say
better.
Goodbye before I start sneezing. Well,
so we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
5 plus 14 is the 19th.
19th. Okay. That sounds good. And I'm trying to think if there's any, well, maybe by that point they'll have a special announcement about hardware.
I know I've got a long wait, but I'm really just waiting for the Mac Pro. I don't plan on buying any computer hardware until that comes out.
Good stuff. So. Yeah, and Paul's no longer on the chat, but he was making the comment. He says, "I'd love to buy a new iPad," because he lost an iPad Pro.
I remember that
earlier this year. But he says, "I'd love to buy a new iPad, but I know the minute I do, they're going to announce a new one." So
I think it's why. I don't mind buying the Mac Pro when it comes out because it will be new, but it's going to be upgradable. So I can sort of keep it new.
Yeah, that's the great thing about that. You'll be able to, at least keep it going for more than, 5 or 10 years. Should be able to keep it for
one
eons.
Side note before we go, but I assume I will be able to use Boot Camp and run Windows on it for whenever I need to.
That should be a possibility.
but even so, it'll be powerful enough. I run Windows on this Mac in a virtual machine, and it does everything I need Windows for.
Not bad. Well, sir, we'll see you next in 2 weeks, I should say. 2 weeks,
yeah.
And everybody, we appreciate you coming out. I do want to throw out a quick thank you to this week's sponsor of Apple World Today, and that is Digiarty, company who you probably know from Mac X DVD. They've come out with a new app. It's actually a free 4K video processing, editing, and sharing app. You can download it for free, and it actually works pretty well. I was playing around with it last week while I'm writing up some sponsorship materials, and I was pretty impressed. So many thanks to them for sponsoring the website this week. And we shall see everybody else later. Everybody have a great couple of weeks.